looks like this girl has the key to making a man commit finally.
I will literally die on this hill. The easiest way to turn a situationship into a relationship is silence. And here is why. Humans as a collective hate being ignored. It talks about this in Human Nature by Robert Greene. In short, negative attention is better to a man than no attention at all. Nothing drives them more insane. Especially if you have been entertaining a situationship with a man for a while, he's going to expect you to continue to play his game and chase after him and try to nail him down. But once you flip the dynamic and you lose interest, you pull back your energy and focus on yourself, he's going to be like, what happened? What changed? She's no longer playing my little game.
Okay, so this is more of the same girl boss type advice that is quite common on this platform, as you've seen many, many times. Always different, right? Different source. And I think the problem here is the same, right? This girl doesn't understand value. Okay, she doesn't understand value difference. No one is forcing you to go with a guy who is acting this way. Okay, no one's forcing you to go for the guy that's probably outside of your range, right? This is what you have to expect and get used to it, right? I think modern girls really do want it all. Okay, they want the guy that's everything, right? The perfect man essentially. And then they also feel entitled to something and they think that playing some sort of simple tricks, like I mean these are very old school tricks at this point. Everybody knows about pullback, right? This is not new anymore. Okay, people are pretty well aware of this. Pullback will only get you something with guys that are weak. That's it. So you could pull back on a guy's bluffing, and if he does run after you, A, he's not as strong as you thought he was, and B, now you're going to lose respect for him. And now every time in the future, you can always just rely on this pullback to get what you want. And if that guy allows you to set this precedent, the relationship is going to be in trouble. Okay? Not how it works. Unfortunately, for ladies like this that think that they're entitled to commitment, like you said, oh, playing his little game, you have to. There's probably 20 guys right now that you know you can go to that will never leave, and you're not entertaining them. They're right there waiting for you in the inbox, but you're not entertaining them. Instead, you're going for a guy that's going to give you a situationship because obviously you enjoy the chaos to some degree. Okay? We don't want to commit. What's the incentive? What's the incentive to commit? This is the ultimate question. And anytime you ask this question, right, guys and girls, mostly girls, but even a lot of guys, they're going to start throwing all kinds of shame at you like, oh, but you're supposed to do this, this, this. And all they do is list off a bunch of arbitrary reasons on the basis of some sort of morality, but their morality, right, which is whatever they want it to be, especially in the West, right? I mean, you see this all the time where you have these atheists, right, who claim they don't like Christianity, but they still think that marriage is this and that. It's like, wait a minute. How can you be atheist, meaning you have to believe in evolution and all these things, but yet you still believe in this? None of it really makes any sense. It's all picking and choosing is what it is, right? I pick and choose to whatever suits my fantasy narrative, nothing to do with objective reality. If you're going to pick a guy that's rare, valuable by not subjective standards, by objective standards, then expect that you're not going to just get what you want when you want it. This is the reality. If you do nail him down, great, but don't expect it to be how you want it, because the moment that he makes a compromise for you, he is in some way making a compromise on his masculinity. And that's just the reality. And I think a lot of people have a problem with this. They try to reinvent the rules around this because it suits their narrative, right? And most people are soft these days, right? Everyone's trying to be soft. They're not really go-getters, but the problem is we're so designed to seek certain things that when we start to cope, now not only do we make ourselves less attractive, but now the other person is also less attractive in our eyes. So just a bunch of chaos, right? Unfortunately, we have to play the way we're supposed to. As guys, you have to go and you have to chase stuff. And not chase women necessarily. I'm not saying that. I'm saying chase reasonable goals, okay? Something that's productive. Not net negative things, but productive things. So in reality, most women are going to be a net negative. They're going to take more than they give. And this is just the reality of nature, right? You attain an excess, okay, of abundance, whether it's financial or whatever it may be, typically financial in the modern era. And then once you get to a certain point, you now can include a woman in your life. And now that woman will take your excess, right? And with that excess, she will create children, right? This is the basis of this. Today, you're not going to get that anymore, right? You're not going to get necessarily that much value in return for what you're giving. And the problem is the guys that these girls are thinking about, the average guys, they're invisible to these girls. So they're not going to see these guys. They're going to say, oh, we're on the same level. We're going to build together. But now in that type of relationship, it's not genuine anymore. You're playing into this fantasy game where, oh, yeah, we can play 50-50 or whatever. The girl's never going to really like that guy. And I've seen this so many times where girls really cope super hard, right? They cope super hard. They go with the guy that they perceive as soft. The way they talk about him is honestly pathetic. He's never been with that many girls, or yeah, I know that I'm the only girl he can get. Like, this is what they say about him. And then they claim 2 seconds later, oh yeah, I love him though, and he's so nice to me, and he does everything I want. It just, it doesn't make any sense, but yet they're out here telling you straight to your face that this is what they want, and it really makes me question if they even know what they want. So, long rant, of course, none of it makes any sense. Okay, none of it, especially this. This girl will go down the same path. You do these tricks, you're only going to retain the soft guy. The moment he does that, you're not going to want him that much anyway. Because now, automatically, your instinct is telling you, oh, is this guy even strong? By the way, I'm not saying, look, from the girl's perspective, to reel it back, right? I'm not saying to stick it out there forever if you really want something and you know that you've been manipulated completely and the guy's not even close to what he is and now he's not giving you what you want. I'm not saying to stay at all cost, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the moment you try to dictate terms, it gets difficult. These days, being in a marriage for a lot of guys is like a prison, right? It's a death sentence because think about it, you're now trapped playing house. You don't want to do any of these things for real. I mean, guys don't really want to play house. There's a few guys that are really, really soft. They like the fantasy of playing house, of course, but as soon as you start turning up the masculinity knob right away, this guy doesn't want to sit there and play house. He really doesn't want to if he's true to himself. He may do it for whatever various reasons, some sort of whatever, if he wants to call it morality or whatever he might do it for. Most of the time, guys that do this do it because they think it's the right thing to do. Okay. Now, some guys, obviously, they get a fair exchange. They're happy. Okay. They get what they want and they're satisfied. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're satisfied with the transaction, I'm not saying it has to be purely transactional, but in essence, it is on some level, right? If you're with a woman and there's a balance and you're getting, if you only want 2 children and she gives you 2 children and you're okay with the work balance that's going on and you're happy and satisfied with it, fair enough. No one can say anything to you. At that point, you're getting what you want, right? But I think the problem is most guys, they say they're getting what they want, but deep down, they aren't. They're sort of dealing with it. And in dealing with it, they're sort of not true to themselves. I think it's more common of an issue than is discussed, but it is what it is. Let's move on.
And then his male brain is going to start to ruminate on you. What happened? Did she meet somebody else? Why isn't she blowing up my phone? XYZ. This is how you move in to live rent free in a guy's head.
Yeah, like I already said, right? You're only going to get the weak guys. Guys that know what's going on, they're not going to bite on this, right? And I talk about this all the time. If anyone that's watched my channel long enough has already encountered this. If a girl starts trying to play ghost on you, just double down. It's that easy. Just double down, never respond. Okay? Because that's the only way. Look, I don't like necessarily the nature of all of it. It's not like I like it. I don't like the nature of a lot of things. But just because I don't like them that much from my fantasy perspective doesn't mean that I can't accept them. I accept the reality of how it is. There is a power dynamic in every relationship. Every single one has a power dynamic. And it's super important that when you're with the woman, as a man, to get what you truly desire out of that woman, you have to make sure that you're on top of that power dynamic. If you're not, things won't be as you want them to. Now, you can lie to yourself all day long that you like being submissive, but truth be told, the vast, vast majority of men aren't like this. Okay, the vast majority of men like being in the dominant position. Most of them just don't know how, or they lie to themselves and say it's not important, or they make some sort of cope excuse because society tells you that 50-50 is great and all this bullshit doesn't make any sense, right? This is the main point I'm trying to get across here.
This also shows that you respect yourself and you're not willing to chase after a man when he's not showing up as the boyfriend you know you deserve.
This is once again self allocating value. It's so insane to me that we live in this era where people are now self allocating value. Isn't that the whole point of the financial system? I mean, you go out, you bring various skills to the market, and you will then in turn get some money out of it. And then that money roughly indicates how valuable you are. Now, this isn't a perfect system. Don't get me wrong. I know there's problems with this system, but I'm saying it's a rough gauge because, yes, I know some guy inherited millions from his father's trust fund. I understand. But for the majority of guys, which roughly start at the same point, maybe they get their schooling paid for. Some don't even get that, right? For those guys, it really does indicate their value if they're able to start from zero and build up to something. Obviously, I mean within the realm of morality, right? And when I say morality, I mean the basic stuff, like not stealing and cheating and scamming and all that stuff, right? As long as they're not doing those things, then I do think that it can be an accurate gauge. So guys don't get this privilege of self-allocating value. A guy can't just go on the stage and say, I'm valuable, and all of a sudden just be more valuable. At some point, the rubber has to meet the road and you have to sort of prove this value, right? In various forms. Your competence with whatever, being able to fix things, be able to solve problems, whatever it may be. Eventually, you have to prove your competence. And if you don't, you're in trouble. But somehow, girls, they could just tell themselves, oh, yeah, I'm valuable. And that's just good enough. Yeah, you are valuable. You can get better. No, you can't. Objectively, it's not true. You can't always get better. You can't. And the same goes for guys, too. It's not like a guy can forever just go and get better. Sure, you could argue someone always better exists technically, but there is a point to where you can't do better. Oh, what does better mean, right? And then we get into this really dumb subjective conversation where one person will then come in and say, oh, well, the only thing that matters to me is loyalty and respect. Nothing else matters. And then we know that that person's lying because 20 minutes ago, they're talking about how that person was hot on the street. And the next second, they're talking about loyalty and respect. Those two things have nothing to do with each other. Okay. So everyone's lying constantly. Everyone's in this fantasy haze and it's very, very annoying. But especially cases like this where it's just more girl power bull buying into the mob, right? To get some views. It's so cheap. It's so overdone. It's not really special at all. Pull back technique, okay? You're trying to bluff power. That's what it is. Pulling back is an indication of, oh, I have power to not care about you. If you do care more than you're letting off, you're screwed because he's just not going to do it. And now you're going to feel that loneliness. You're going to feel those emotions and you're going to chase him. And now you're in a worse position, I'd argue better than before, right? So this stuff is so stupid. It doesn't work.
My grandmother used to always tell me absence makes the heart grow fonder. There's a reason that has been a saying for literally like a century.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, meaning this. So you're taking this out of context, of course, and you're applying it to your narrative. So we're going to really define this. Absence makes you wonder, okay? Because in the old days, a guy couldn't just be at home all the time. He had to go. He had to go create stuff, okay? He wasn't just sitting at home playing house. Now that wonder, the woman's wonder of where he is, it keeps her in a fantasy state about him. The more time you spend with each other, the less fantasy oriented it becomes because you know who they really are. And love is a fantasy concept, right? And there's always going to be a person that says, oh, but true love transcends that. And then we get back into the subjective garbage that everyone talks about, right? Love needs to be worked on. There is a fantasy that needs to be maintained in order to make that relationship thrive. When a woman starts to unnaturally take this process into her own hands and tries to introduce scarcity forcibly into the relationship, that is not the same as absence makes the heart grow fonder naturally. Okay, before there was a natural mechanism that created distance. Now, if you're going to manually do that, you are now taking control of the relationship, which means now you have a more dominant position in that relationship. You're not going to be as submissive. You're not going to like your man as much over time unless the only thing you care about is fear and control. And having any sort of relationship on the basis of fear and control is just not going to work. It's just not going to work. You will manifest your worst case scenario by acting this way. And this is the most common reality, not fantasy. I mean, this girl probably just came out of a relationship with the guy that did exactly that and now is commenting on it. Or she had this experience in the past and is still not over it, right?
And I just witnessed this with one of my best guy friends. he was entertaining this girl for like 2 years, you guys. And she wanted a relationship. He didn't want to commit. Finally, she got her together and she walked out the door and she said, I'm done doing this. And guess what he did? He switched his tune and he finally committed to her because now he was attached to her and he couldn't bear not having her in his life in any capacity.
Well, first off, I mean, you have a guy best friend. So if he's your best friend, what does that say about the guy, right? And what's the point? What's the point of a guy having a girl best friend all the time? What do you guys talk about? Your hair? Nail appointments? It's not even slightly surprising to me that that guy caved, right? Oh, I couldn't bear not having her in my life. Hey, if she's that valuable, fair enough. I mean, exceptions always exist, right? Exceptions always exist, but same old stupid we keep getting fed over and over again, and it's just causing more damage than good.
So even though he has commitment issues, which, men.
Commitment issues. We don't get that much value. It's not commitment issues. We are not designed to commit, just like you guys aren't designed to go for the average loser. We don't tell you guys, oh, you have issues or whatever. I mean, some guys do if they're weak because they're mad, but we don't say it to you guys. So why is it commitment issues when we're not designed to commit? We have to force ourselves to commit, to adhere to some sort of standard that society has put on us. That's what this is all about.
He got his shit together and committed to her because he wasn't willing to lose her. But the caveat is you have to really be willing to walk away.
The moment you give her power, she now has that power forever. Okay? And it has to be on your terms. End of story. If it's not, could lead to issues. Some guys do this and they don't have massive issues, of course, right? When girls start getting to a jousting match with you like this, then it usually leads to problems. The whole domineering thing, or I know my worth, I deserve, is like, well, you made your decision and now you're not getting what you want. And now you're going to play games to manipulate that process. At that point, a guy is a guy, right? You're just a guy. So take that as you will. Girls love talking about the divine feminine all the time. Doesn't sound very divine feminine to me. Because if we're talking about the divine masculine, he wouldn't care. So none of this is idealistic, but of course, the guy has to get over his commitment issues, right? The girl shouldn't be shooting above her league. She's allowed to do that.
You can't just say it and sit there. You have to actually walk away and give him silence. It's not about playing games.
It's quite literally a game. I don't really care about it. I mean, everyone plays games. Even people that say they don't play games, everything's a game. The author you're talking about says that exact concept. Everybody is playing a game, okay? Everybody's playing a game. So, yes, it is. It is about playing games. You're trying to manipulate the system by faking value, okay? It's a bluff, is what it is.
It's about being a bad bitch, in my opinion. They move differently, you guys. They know their self-worth, and if this man isn't meeting the caliber of treatment that they expect from men, bye. If you like these tips, be sure to schedule a one-on-one with me via the link in my bio.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll get a nice pep talk in your 1v1 about how valuable you are and how you don't need men and all this stuff, right? While continuing to stay average for your entire life. I'm sure it's a good long-term strategy. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you want to see more of my private content, don't forget to check the link in the description below.